test, test. 1, 2, 3. Test, test. 1, 2, 3. 30-second delay. That's in case anybody says any bad words, they can beep it. Well, your mic's not on. I think you're okay. All right. You need me to do more? I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order for the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. Please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Dear Lord, as we come together tonight, empower us so that we can make good decisions for the city, we can be respectful of everyone's views, and we can carefully consider all options. Help us to develop plans that are easily implemented and benefit the citizens of this great city. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, so I welcome everybody to the proceedings tonight. We'll start with item number 4, citizens' comments. Any citizens want to make any comments? No? Okay. Hearing no one wants to make a comments, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, public hearing, but that public hearing has been canceled, and do I understand, I understand it correctly, the project was withdrawn? Is that what?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that project has been withdrawn.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so then I'll move on to item number 6 and 6.1. Consider the approval of the minutes for the June 18th, 2024 P&Z meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay? All right, show that is unanimous. And we'll move on to item number 7, and item 7.1, discussion and action regarding the approval of a preliminary plat that provides for the development of 93 single-family homes on 18.72 acres of land generally located at the intersection of FM 548 and Man Road. Turn it over to city staff for comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So the request is the approval of a preliminary plat that provides for the development of 93 single-family lots on 18.672 acres of land located generally at the intersection of FM 548 and Man Road. The application is administratively complete and is in conformity with the City of McLendon-Chisholm's Code of Ordinances, and therefore the staff is recommending approval. We have Mr. Craig here from the development who would be happy to take any of your questions at this time. And at this time, I'll turn it over.
Sir, do you have any comments you want to add?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Justin Craig here representing the Telus Group. We have before you tonight an application for approval of a preliminary plat. As you may or may not know, we have gained approval from the board and the City Council to previously submitted preliminary plats. Since the P&Z has seen those, we've discovered that there was a bald eagle's nest on site. We've had to do extensive re-engineering to downsize and adjust that entry road. And so the plat that you have before you tonight is essentially trying to get back generally to the total unit count that we had for phase 1. And so the geographic area that this plat occupies is basically what we were anticipating portion of phase 2 to be. So this is just to get back to basically the same unit count after all of the engineering and alignment adjustments. So with that, I'll answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Is this a new name for the development?
Should just be Meraki.
Yeah. Is that, I hadn't heard that name before. Is that new?
I think that was the name that was in effect the last time I came before you.
Okay.
But
All right.
early on it was Tapestry, and before that it was Man Ranch.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just keeping all the names straight. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any questions from any commissioners? Start down here. No, nothing? Sir?
Who was providing the water?
High Point Water.
Chris?
So I don't know if this is a time to bring it up, but as I mentioned before, in trying to review the submission to P&Z, the PDF is not legible in trying to blow out any kind of detail and understanding what the plans actually look like. And even today, I would need, I think, a magnifying glass. I know I don't have 20/20 vision anymore, but I am in no shape to be able to even read what is on the plat drawing in front of me. So to me, it is hard to comment based on that,
Mm-hmm.
and to give meaningful feedback and an open willingness to commit.
Okay.
It says, I'm sorry.
No, go on.
Do you have the full-size plat available? Because it says available for review at McLendon-Chisholm City Hall.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. So we do have those available, just not right now. They're not. There's not enough.
That doesn't make
And so,
sense.
yeah. So
I'm sorry.
no, I get that. So we've printed out what we have available right now. So I mean, I'd be happy to kind of entertain any.
Well, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
If I couldn't come down to City Hall to actually review a full-size plat, what's my options? I'm sort of stuck.
Well, if you wanted to come down to City Hall to review this plan, I'd be more than happy to kind of review it one-on-one with you, with the PDF or anything like that. If you have any questions or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to review it with you at any time.
I get it, and I appreciate that, Mr. Woodbury. I was trying to pull it up on Saturday. I was like, I cannot read it.
I'm assuming
Understood.
that you have sewers.
Because it's not enough land for a septic.
That's correct. Yep. We have a TCEQ approval of a sewer treatment package plant, and then ultimately a permanent package or permanent plant.
Okay. You know, I don't like small lots.
Yeah, that's- Yes, sir. Jerry, nothing? Okay. The permanent sewage processing facility, what phase does that come in? Can you remind me?
It's tied to flows. So when you get to a certain level of flows, you have to be under design on the permanent plant, and then it has to be under construction at the next milestone. I'm not remembering exactly those thresholds, but I think it's generally, I'm going to say approximately, when you're 30 or 40% into it, you have to be under design, and I think you have to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 80% where you have to be under construction.
Okay, so it's down the road. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking phase, a future phase, obviously, but,
Right, yeah.
okay. And I'm interested, not interested in the eagle nest question. Well, can you explain a little more? Haven't heard that before. I haven't had to deal with that kind of issue before. I was just curious for our own edification, what that was and how that got rectified.
Yeah, we were in the process of sort of clearing and doing some preparatory work, and then we discovered that there was a bald eagle's nest just to sort of, if you're driving north on Man Road, it was off to the right. And so off into the open space, and it was within open space that we had already included in the plat. The problem is the guidelines required a 660-foot radius buffer around that nest, and so we essentially had to push out Man Road to the boundary of what that radius was. And so the guidelines were updated in April, and then so once we got those updated guidelines, we were able to make that adjustment to avoid having to go through an extensive permitting process that had a lot of gray area interpretation associated with it, and so it just made more sense to just stay out of the buffer. And then you have to monitor it for a minimum for 5 years, and then even at that point, it's not guaranteed that you can develop that area that's impacted by the buffer. So we basically put that at the end of the project, and we'll reassess at that point whether or not the eagle's nest still exists, if there is any activity, and then proceed at that point. So right now, we've just earmarked it as open space for the time being.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. How's it coming on with the city of Dallas for the easement on their,
We've gained engineering approval of the alignment and also the load isolation structure, which is essentially a bridge type improvement over their water line aqueduct or right of way. And so now we're just going through their legal process, which is, I've been told, a lot longer, but we feel comfortable in moving forward with the plats and everything that we have at this point, but we won't be doing any work within their right-of-way, their aqueduct right-of-way, until we get formal approval from their legal department.
mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And then I'll just remind the commission, if I'm correct here, Ace, and I'm looking for your guidance on this, since this is in our ETJ, and it's in Kaufman County, that the interlocal agreement the city has with Kaufman County is the governing document?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the members of the commission, some of that certainly, I think, Jerry, you'll be new to this, but I'm doing this from memory, so correct me if I misspeak. There is an interlocal agreement that the city has with Kaufman County governing how we conduct reviews relative to activities that take place in Kaufman County. And the city staff provides us the guidance on what the compliance is. So it's not as clean cut as it's in our ETJ. It's in our ETJ, but it's also in Kaufman County. So there's a little bit more of a coordination that takes place. So we've reviewed this. I'll just remind the commission too. We reviewed this project extensively as we went through the zoning case, and now it's just on to and then when you were looking to get the move ahead so you could start working the easement package with City of Dallas. So now it's just into the preliminary plat. At this point, it is compliant with both our subdivision regulations and also with our interlocal agreement with Kaufman County.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Okay, all right, very good. So, pending any other questions? Yes. Yes, sir.
As you move some of the boundaries in there, I'm struggling to kind of glance down at the bottom of this. Did you have any effect where it went into the floodplain in that area, or was that not an issue for you?
So say that again.
That floodplain in that area, as you relocated your boundaries, did you have any concern, or did it push any of this productive area into your flood zone?
We had to modify our flood study and then submit that to Kaufman County for approval. And so they approved it. One other item that we'll be taking before the Commissioner's Court here in the next couple weeks is an agreement to abandon and rededicate Mann Road. So the new alignment, the county wants to maintain ownership of the road because they feel it's a major connection, sort of north-south from FM 548. And so that was very important to them. But that's the final thing that we need to get approved through the county.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, I'll call for the vote. And again, we're voting to approve the preliminary plat that provides for development of 93 single-family lots on 18.67 acres of land. So, all in favor? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat that provides for the development of 93 single-family lots on 18.67 acres of land located generally at the intersection of FM 548 and Mann Road. This application is administratively complete and conforms with the City of McLendon-Chisholm Code of Ordinances.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And abstention. Okay, so show that four votes for with one abstention. How's that? So it passes. And it's a preliminary plat, so it'll be back. And I just will highlight again, I think this has been something I would like us to continue to work on. I mean, the ability to manipulate these documents online would be much easier than coming down and getting packets, I guess, to, and actually having the full documentation. But if we can do that.
Understood.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
So that I could see it?
We could, if that is something that the commission would like to do for these, instead of having these printouts, what we could do is we could do them on a PowerPoint and we could blow them up on these screens if you think that would be a better way. Is that something you all would like?
I think, well, I just,
Or would you like the handout
administratively,
and
if
the
we
PowerPoint?
can make a copy of the packet, because I think that's important for each of the commissioners. But to Mr. Ritz's comment, I think it would be beneficial if he has, bring a laptop, you can tie in. We have a visitor access, right? Yeah. So the answer is yes, you could do that. Yeah, yeah.
You know, no matter how much you try to put it on an 8.5 or 11 or 8.5 by 14, you can't read it.
Mm-hmm.
But at least if you got a touch laptop, you can get to it and read it, see what it's going, see what it is.
Yes, sir. I agree. And I think having a copy of the full plat in here when we're doing the discussions is also useful. Because sometimes we had, and I'm not sure if you were here, Asa, when we had when they had one of the prior discussions with this applicant, there was some question on the roads and how the road layout, and we actually resolved it that night. But it was, I only could do it with the full plat. We got through it. Okay? Thank you.
And I would like to offer assistance, if you'd like it, on trying to help get the PDF that you ended up sending out. I'd be more than welcome to help you do that from a technology point of view. That's all in the job of every day.
I would appreciate that.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Mr. Woodbury.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7.2. It says discussion and action, but candidly, this is more of a discussion. And prior to the meeting, I handed each of you a 2-page paper, and I also thank our fellow commissioner who has actually brought a copy of the state ordinance or state code dealing with this subject on notification for ordinance. And I think I'm going to I'll leave that for your reading, but just to summarize it, as a type A city, we're bound by Texas code, and Texas State Municipal Code 212 is the local government code that governs through the subchapter E, implementing any moratoriums. And I know there's occasionally discussions within the public, so the intention here is to help everybody understand what's necessary for a city to impose a moratorium. And the key note in Texas law is the justification for a moratorium must be based on a shortage of an essential public facility. I want to emphasize public facility. And the city then must provide written findings explaining the shortage and explaining its impact. And then the municipality then can adopt a moratorium on property development, but it must first clearly state the evidence and provide the demonstrated extent of the need beyond the estimated capability. So explain the shortage and what the shortage impacts are, and then how that issue negatively impacts the city. And then if a moratorium is not imposed, how overcapacity will be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the municipality. So it's a high bar to set. And then the city must also demonstrate that alternative methods do not alleviate the problems and that the underlying motivation for imposing a moratorium, right? So whatever that critical public shortfall is, and then geographic boundaries would have to be established around where that designated shortfall exists. And then once that is done, then we go through a public hearing process. Public in planning and zoning, and then the city council would go through the same public hearing process. And then once the public hearing process is cleared, then council has to act within 12 days to make a decision on a determination of imposing a moratorium, and then the moratorium is established for a set period, and then it would have to be readdressed at the end of that period. So it's a very specific process. Our sister city, Heath, imposed a moratorium based on a identified shortfall of water, and then what they did is they used that moratorium period to adapt or to adopt new ordinances that allowed them to better manage the resources they had available. And that's how Heath has moved forward. I know this has specifically been brought up here because of our existing water shortages, and the idea of imposing a building moratorium would somehow alleviate us, right? A building freeze has been referred to. But I would, my opinion, strong opinion, is that our code of ordinance for subdivision regulations, specifically Section 9, which is drainage and stormwater, and Section 10, which is water services, provides all the necessary guidelines for establishing water to that, and this is in the final plat process, to that plat, which would then be used to construct a building. So if the water doesn't exist, you can't construct. So a moratorium in this case would be unnecessary because the existing code would not allow you to construct buildings, and that's consistent within our subdivision regulations. So, it's just I am only highlighting it because I think sometimes it's easy to seek a solution, but the solution is actually more complicated. And the state of Texas is very clear, the legislature has been very clear that because they see imposing a moratorium as being an onerous on landowners to potentially deny them landowners' rights, economic benefit through that. So the city would have to be very careful in implementing any kind of moratorium. So it's.
So you're basically saying that this code of ordinance, if we wanted to declare a moratorium, it would obviously be for water. But this says that they can't go ahead anyway
Right,
if we don't have any water for them.
that's correct.
So there's really no point.
Exactly. The moratorium is moot. Yeah. Yeah, it's because there's a cure notice that a cure that has to be implied here, right? That there's some fix that can be implemented. And in this case, that's why I emphasize the word public. In the case of water, since our city doesn't control water, it's actually controlled by 3 separate entities, water supply companies, that any long-term solution, of course, would come from them if there was an actual water shortage, whether it was infrastructure provided or whatever the cause for the shortfall to be able to provide those services. And I only say it, I have to, so you're correct, Tom, I see, our code is sufficiently strong in this point, and actually Asa and I have had that conversation. We've want to be careful as we consider future plat considerations, right? To make sure that in this case, our code is very specific that the city engineer has to provide the certification on the availability of water, right? It's a very clear statement. So we would, we should be attuned to that as we consider future plats that are, again, within the city, not necessarily within the ETJ. It gets into a murkier area, but certainly inside the city limits. Okay. Now. Yes, sir.
So I guess a couple things do come to mind that are of concern. If we try controlling this through the final plat, it would be, I think, on us to also understand the liability that puts the city under. That's the concern that I've got. And we need to know, even though we only provide the recommendation to council, council eventually makes that decision. I would like to be able to intelligently make that decision and understand the liability that would be in place. The other concern that I haven't had a chance to think about this until just now, but how is even the city engineer able to say that a water supplier, which is a private company, has that capacity? How does that get done? There's pieces in this process that do not seem fully baked yet. And these are concerns that before we try doing this, I don't know if it would be wise to ever deny a final plat, because we don't have the process and procedures in place that establish the justification on why we can say no. Even if the ordinance says that we can, what's the basis for us providing that determination? So there has to be more than just we state that it is in their ordinances to allow us to do this. There has to be some guardrails and some rules of the road that we have to understand. And that's a concern. I don't want to sit here and think that we are unfettered in our power to deny, based on our perception of what water capacities are available from different distributors.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I think we're dependent on the guidance we receive from staff concerning any communications with the water supply company.
But how do they verify, have that contact?
Those are going to be great future questions for when the next time we consider a plat. That would be certainly something. I'm pointing out that that beyond the concept of a moratorium isn't necessary to achieve the desired outcome. Now that you're raising the next point, which is the verification that goes within that decision to back us up, and I agree with you completely on that point.
I just don't know how it behooves a public company to not provide a will serve letter when that is their source of revenue.
Yeah.
And I do not know how we get honesty from a private company that would not say, yeah, I can support it, and I'll hand out 93 will serve letters. It's in their interest. I just see this being very fraught with peril. I do agree that the ordinances are a much better, cleaner route than a moratorium. So I'm definitely wanting to see what, Heath and how they're actually applying this and how they are skating through this obstacle course. Just as the lessons that they're learning, I would hope that we can learn from without having to experience ourselves and expose the city to liability.
Yeah. Yeah, Heath context is different, right? Since it's the city supplied service versus a private company supplied service.
Sure, not saying that there's a one-to-one correlation.
Yeah.
But they are going down a route that is fraught with peril, that has corollaries to what we're trying to do. And it's not clear on how the cleanest path forward is.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Right. The good news is you have an engaged commission.
Well, Commissioner Free, so I do take your point, especially about how the engineer can guarantee that, especially for the water. So that is a conversation that I can have with our city engineer, Dub, to kind of ask him to kind of pinpoint and lay out his processes about what he is doing, the conversations he's having, and when those conversations is appropriate. And I can get back to you on that process as well.
Yes, please. And it's also the verification. How does he know what he's being told is
The
the
truth.
truth?
Okay.
And that doesn't seem to be easy.
I mean, a specific language, there is specific engineering design that's supposed to be presented from our ordinance. We've actually talked about this before, and I know the developer across the street, when they were coming for, right over here, for preliminary, actually provided those in the preliminary plat phase, just as we've discussed the need, or the desire to, if we do an ordinance review, to see if we can push that to the preliminary plat, versus the final plat. Get that process started, so. Okay. All right. Any other questions on 7.2? Thoughts? Okay, good. With that, I'll move on to 7.3. Consider an action regarding the approval of the final plat for development of a single-family residential lot on 4 acres of land located on Edwards Road, with a frontage on Edwards Road located to the northeast of Dow Road. And this is in our ETJ, Jerry's neck of the woods. So I'll turn it over to the city, turn it over to you, Asa.
So item 7.3 has been pulled from the agenda tonight. So item 7.3 has been pulled because the application is not administratively complete.
Okay.
So it has been pulled, and we will not discuss this item tonight.
All right. Very good. Okay. And so with that, you have anything else, Asa, from the city perspective?
No, sir, we are good. I think that's it for us.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment before, we've, Asa has now been, I was reminded today, you've been here for 7 months. So it's been a pleasure working with you. We appreciate your enthusiasm, and we really do support your continued growth within the city. So I think that all my fellow commissioners will say we appreciate your hard work for the city, for the citizens.
Thank you, and I appreciate you all always being willing to give honest, candid feedback. I think that it makes our working relationship better, but it also helps me grow professionally. So I do appreciate that as well. So thank you all.
All right. I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right, we stand adjourned at 19:04. I have a feeling it got pulled because there's no. Is it Blackland? It's Blackland, and it's not an issue. I thought the one on Man, is that Blackland? Are you Blackland out there, Jerry? Or is that RCH? Water, who's your water?